The departure board at John F. Kennedy International Airport flickered red. Canceled. Canceled. Delayed indefinitely. Canceled. Terminal 4 was a storm of broken journeys. Thousands of travelers watched their plans collapse. Some shouted at airline staff. Others sat on their luggage, heads in hands. A child cried while her mother frantically scrolled through her phone, searching for any route home. Ibrahim Trrower stood quietly, observing. He had seen coups, droughts, the aftermath of military withdrawals. But this was different. This was America, the richest nation on earth, and its skies were closing. 40 airports across the United States had just received the same directive from the FAA: reduce flights by 10% immediately. The reason was terrifying. Air traffic controllers, the men and women who kept planes from colliding in midair, were working their 36th consecutive day without pay. The government shutdown had dragged into its second month, and now something essential had broken. Trrower's own flight to Geneva, scheduled in 3 hours, no longer existed. He adjusted his jacket, pulled his carry-on to a quieter corner, and sat down to wait. Unlike most travelers, panic did not grip him. He had learned long ago that systems fail. The only question is what you learn when they do. A security announcement crackled overhead. Due to federal staffing shortages, all passengers should expect significant delays. We apologize for the inconvenience. The word inconvenience sparked fresh outbursts. A businessman in an expensive suit shouted into his phone about missed meetings. A young woman with a backpack sat on the floor, tears streaming down her face. "I was supposed to see my dad. He's sick. I don't know when I'll get another chance." Trrower approached her. "Excuse me," he said quietly. "I don't mean to intrude, but is there any way I can help?" She looked up, surprised. "Unless you can restart the government or pay air traffic controllers, probably not. Sorry. I'm just scared." "Don't apologize," Trrower said gently. "Fear is honest. What's your father's situation?" "Cancer. Stage 4. He's in Portland. I'm in New York for school. I saved for months to afford this ticket." Before Trrower could respond, a commotion erupted at a nearby gate. Pilots in uniform argued with a gate agent. "We're willing to fly, but they're telling us we can't. There aren't enough controllers to handle the traffic. Do you understand what this means? The richest country on earth can't keep its planes in the air?" An older man in casual clothes approached. His badge identified him as airline staff, but his movements carried the weight of years. "I'm a controller," he said quietly. "Retired 6 months ago after 25 years. Came back on emergency basis when the shutdown started. Do you know what's happening up in those towers right now?" The pilots listened intently. People are working 12-hour shifts, sometimes longer. No sleep, no pay. Watching hundreds of planes on screens, knowing that one mistake could kill 300 people. They're taking personal loans to feed their families. Some are selling their cars. And every day they come in, not because the government pays them, but because they took an oath to keep people safe. Trrower absorbed every word. The situation crystallized in his mind, not as an American problem, but as a universal one. How long could any system run on the dedication of its workers when the system itself refused to support them? He thought of the gold mines in Burkina Faso, where workers had extracted wealth for decades while receiving almost nothing. Companies claimed they couldn't afford better wages. They claimed market pressures demanded efficiency, and workers kept working because their families needed to eat. Trrower returned to the young woman. What's your name? Sarah. Sarah, I'm Ibrahim. I want you to know something. Your father knows you're trying to reach him. That effort, that love, it matters even when systems fail. She looked at him with red eyes. Are you some kind of counselor? He smiled slightly. No, just someone who's seen systems fail before. It teaches you what actually matters.
The retired controller's words lingered in the air. Trrower understood. This wasn't about politics or bureaucracy. It was about human beings, exhausted and unpaid, holding the sky together with sheer duty. He thought of Burkina Faso's mines, where men had worked for decades under foreign companies, extracting gold while earning almost nothing. They kept working because their families had to eat. Systems everywhere demanded sacrifice, but rarely gave back. Nearby, Sarah still sat on the floor, staring at her phone. Trrower returned to her. What's your name? Sarah. Sarah, I'm Ibrahim. Your father knows you're trying to reach him. That effort, that love, it matters, even when systems fail. She looked at him with red eyes. Are you some kind of counselor? He smiled faintly. No, just someone who's seen systems fail before. It teaches you what actually matters. Suddenly, a commotion erupted at the security checkpoint. A man in a sharp suit shouted at TSA agents, I have a boarding pass. I'm supposed to be on that flight. You can't just cancel it. Sir, please lower your voice, an agent said. I won't lower my voice. Do you know who I am? Do you know how much money I spend on flights every year? Perhaps there's a better way to handle this, Trrower said. Who the hell are you? Another useless airport employee? No, Trrower said softly, just another passenger like you. I'm not like everyone here, the man snapped. I'm a Priority Diamond member. I fly 200,000 miles a year. I don't wait in lines. I don't get my flights canceled. And yet, Trrower observed, here you are, waiting, canceled, the same as everyone else. The man's face reddened. You don't understand how business works, real business, not whatever third world nonsense you're used to. Trrower's voice stayed steady. You're right. I don't understand your business, but I understand something else. The controllers who would guide your plane haven't been paid in 36 days. They're working anyway, because if they don't, planes crash. Their dedication is the only thing between you and disaster, and that's something you can't buy your way out of. The man opened his mouth, then closed it. His anger deflated. You want to get to Chicago. That's legitimate. But right now, the system that gets you there is broken. Not because of laziness, but because the people who keep it running have been asked to work without pay. And even they have limits. Without another word, the man walked away. He didn't apologize, but he didn't yell either. Later, Trrower noticed a janitor moving through the terminal. He worked methodically, emptying trash cans, wiping down surfaces, seemingly unbothered by the chaos. Trrower approached him. Excuse me, may I ask you something? The janitor paused. He was in his 50s, with weathered hands. Sure, I guess. Have you been working through this whole crisis? Every day. Someone's got to keep the place clean. Especially now with people camping out, more spills, more mess. Are you being paid? I'm a contractor, not federal, so yeah, I'm getting paid. Not much, but it's something. Do you know the controllers aren't being paid? I heard. That's rough. But what can you do? That's government work for you. Is it? Or is it a choice by people in power? The janitor considered. I guess when you put it that way, but I try not to think about it too much. Just do my job, collect my check, go home. That's fair, Trrower said. But I wonder, if enough people decided not to accept it, if enough people said, this isn't right, could it change? Maybe. But people like me, we can't afford to make waves. Gotta feed my family, keep my job. I understand, Trrower said sincerely. Thank you for your time. Sarah, who had been listening, spoke up. That's the problem, isn't it? The people with the least power suffer most when they resist. Yes, Trrower agreed. That's exactly the problem. And that's why change must come from those with more power choosing to use it differently, or from enough powerless people finding power together. Friendly, Robert, the retired controller, sat down heavily on a nearby bench. His face carried the fatigue of decades in the tower. You asked why I came back, he said quietly. If the government won't pay me, why work? Trrower leaned forward. Yes, why? Robert studied him for a moment. I worked Kennedy Tower for 25 years. Thousands of planes, thousands of lives. Never a single incident. When I retired, I thought I was done. Then this shutdown happened. First week, I didn't think much of it. Politicians fight. They always figure it out. Second week, my old colleagues were stressed, but managing. Third week, I got a call from my supervisor. They were desperate. Controllers were calling in sick, not faking, but collapsing under stress. Marriages breaking. Families taking loans just to eat. So I came back. Trrower listened intently. Robert's voice carried both pride and sorrow. I came back not for money, not for recognition. I came back because those planes up there have families on them. Kids, elderly people, people going to funerals, people going to weddings. Every single one matters. And if I can keep them safe by working for free for a little while, then that's what I do. Sarah spoke softly. That shouldn't be your burden. Robert looked at her. You're right, it shouldn't be. But the world isn't built on what should be. It's built on what people choose to do when what should be fails. Trrower felt something shift inside him. Systems were not sustained by rules or structures, but by people who chose to uphold them, even when abandoned. He thought of Burkina Faso's mines, reclaimed from foreign companies. Workers had asked a simple question. If we can run the mines without fair pay, why can't we run them with fair pay? And they had. Slowly, imperfectly, but they had. Robert leaned back. Sounds like you understand what's happening here better than most Americans. I understand that planes need controllers, and controllers need to eat. A government that asks people to work without pay has forgotten something essential. Sarah's phone rang suddenly. She grabbed it, her hands trembling. Dad, are you okay? Her face shifted rapidly. Relief, concern, love. No, I'm still at the airport. Flight got canceled. They're saying maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after. I don't know. She listened, tears welling. I love you too. I'll get there as soon as I can. She hung up, wiping her eyes. He says not to worry, just to be safe, but I can hear it in his voice. He's getting weaker. Trrower placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. The love you're showing him, calling, trying to reach him, worrying about him, that's reaching him, even if you're not physically there yet. I hope so, she whispered. Later, an airline employee approached Trrower. "Excuse me, are you Ibrahim Trrower?" He hesitated, then nodded. "There's a flight crew that would like to speak with you. They heard you were here." She led him to a crew lounge. Inside, 5 pilots and 3 flight attendants waited. They stood when he entered. "Mr. President, thank you for talking to us. We know you're dealing with your own travel issues, but we wanted to, we just wanted to talk." "Please sit," Trrower said, "and call me Ibrahim. We're all just passengers tonight." They sat in a circle, uniforms slightly worn by hours of stress. A flight attendant spoke first. "We've been reading about what you did in Burkina Faso, taking control of the mines, standing up to foreign companies. You know about that?" Trrower was surprised. "You've heard of it. We hear things. International roots, stories spread. A leader who stood up for his people's rights." "How did you do it?" the flight attendant asked. "How did you get people to believe change was possible?" Trrower thought carefully. "I didn't get people to believe. They already believed. For years, decades. They just didn't think anyone in power would listen to them. The first step wasn't convincing them to want change. It was showing them that someone in authority was willing to fight for it with them." "But weren't you afraid?" another pilot asked. "Of retaliation, sanctions, coup?" "Terrified," Trrower admitted. "Still am sometimes. But here's what I learned. The powerful want you to be afraid. They want you to think resistance is impossible. They want you to accept that this is just how things are. But how things are is a choice. Someone chose it, which means someone can choose differently."
The crew sat in silence for a moment, uniforms wrinkled, eyes tired. Then one of the younger pilots spoke. "We feel stuck. We want to stand with the controllers. Some of us have refused unsafe routes with skeleton crews, but the airlines threaten to fire us. We have families, mortgages. How do you choose between supporting what's right and protecting your own?" "You don't have to choose," Trrower said. "That's the false choice they want you to accept. The real question is, how do you support what's right while also protecting yourself? And the answer is usually the same, collectively." A flight attendant leaned forward. "A strike?" "I'm not suggesting anything specific," Trrower said carefully. "I'm not American. This isn't my country. But I am saying this. Isolated individuals can be picked off one by one. Groups are much harder to dismiss." The pilots exchanged glances. One of them, a woman with captain stripes, spoke quietly. "ALPA's been discussing exactly this. The Allied Pilots Association. We've been in talks about possible actions if the shutdown continues." "Then you're already further along than you think," Trrower replied. For 30 minutes they spoke, about Burkina Faso's mines, about international pressure, about the cost of resistance. Trrower answered honestly. Yes, there had been consequences. Yes, some days were harder than others. But he reminded them, systems only change when people refuse to accept collapse as normal. Outside the lounge, the airport shifted into night. The terminal lights dimmed. Departure boards showed blank spaces where flights used to be. Announcements echoed. "Selected terminals will be closing soon. Please check with your airlines for updated information." Families with children gave up waiting. Parents carried sleeping kids toward exits. An elderly man in a wheelchair asked repeatedly where his gate was, not understanding that his flight had been canceled. A patient attendant explained again and again. Each small tragedy was a reminder. The failure was not abstract. It was human. Robert returned, looking even more tired. "It's going to be a long night. The tower's down to skeleton crew. Bare minimum to keep essential flights moving."
Define essential, Trrower asked. Medical emergencies, military, critical cargo. Everything else is grounded or reduced. This is the worst I've ever seen. Worse than 1981? Trrower asked. Different. Back then it was sudden, massive, but it resolved. This is like watching something slowly bleed out. Every day more people reach their breaking point. More controllers realize they can't do this anymore. More pilots consider walking away. More passengers decide flying isn't worth the chaos. Sarah hugged her knees, listening. How does it end? Robert shrugged. Someone blinks. Government reopens and pays people. Or the system collapses entirely. Or, he hesitated. Or what? Trrower prompted. Or we learn to live with a degraded system. Fewer flights, higher prices, more delays. The new normal. Trrower thought of Burkina Faso's decades under France, accepting less, watching resources extracted while receiving the minimum to prevent collapse. The parallel was exact. That's why you resist early, before degradation becomes the baseline. Easy to say, harder to do when you have a mortgage and kids. I know. That's why systemic change requires more than individual courage. It requires collective action, solidarity.
The night deepened at Kennedy Airport. The departure boards were nearly blank, their silence louder than any announcement. Passengers curled up in chairs, some searching for hotels, others resigned to sleeping on the floor. The airport had become a strange temporary village, united not by destination, but by failure. Robert returned, his face lined with exhaustion. The tower's down to skeleton crew, he said, bare minimum to keep essential flights moving. Define essential, Trrower asked. Medical emergencies, military, critical cargo. Everything else is grounded or reduced. This is the worst I've ever seen, Robert admitted. Different from 1981. Back then it was sudden, massive, but it resolved. This is like watching something slowly bleed out. Every day more people reach their breaking point. More controllers realize they can't do this anymore. More pilots consider walking away. More passengers decide flying isn't worth the chaos. How does it end? Sarah asked. Robert shrugged. Someone blinks. Government reopens and pays people. Or the system collapses entirely. Or, he hesitated. Or what? Trrower prompted. Or we learn to live with a degraded system. Fewer flights, higher prices, more delays. The new normal. Trrower thought of Burkina Faso's decades under France, accepting less, watching resources extracted while receiving the minimum to prevent collapse. The parallel was exact. That's why you resist early, before degradation becomes the baseline. Easy to say, harder to do when you have a mortgage and kids. I know. That's why systemic change requires more than individual courage. It requires collective action, solidarity. A janitor pushed his cart past them, emptying bins, wiping surfaces. He worked methodically, professionally, as if the chaos around him didn't exist. Trrower approached. Have you been working through this whole crisis? Every day. Someone's got to keep the place clean. Are you being paid? I'm a contractor, so yeah, I'm getting paid. Not much, but it's something. Do you know the controllers aren't being paid? I heard. That's rough. But what can you do? That's government work for you. Is it? Trrower asked. Or is it a choice by people in power? The janitor paused. I guess, when you put it that way. But I try not to think about it too much. Just do my job, collect my check, go home. That's fair. But I wonder, if enough people decided not to accept it, if enough people said, this isn't right, could it change? Maybe, the janitor said doubtfully. But people like me, we can't afford to make waves. Gotta feed my family, keep my job. I understand, Trrower said sincerely. Sarah, listening, whispered, That's the problem. The people with the least power suffer most when they resist. Yes, Trrower agreed. That's why change must come from those with more power choosing to use it differently, or from enough powerless people finding power together. Robert studied Trrower. You know, it's interesting. You talk about theory, philosophy, but I've watched you tonight. The way you calmed that angry businessman, the way you sat with Sarah, the way you talk to everyone like they matter, the janitor, the controllers, everyone. You live what you're saying. I try, but I'm one person. That's not enough. One person is how it starts. That's how unions started. That's how every movement starts. One person saying, this isn't right, loud enough that others hear it. Suddenly, an airline employee approached. Excuse me, are you Ibrahim Trrower? He nodded. There's a flight crew that would like to speak with you. They heard you were here.